Callie Younger, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am doing so well. I'm pumped to talk to you.
Me too.
You are the administrator of the Office of Energy and Mineral Resource for the state of Idaho.
Yes.
And the administrator is similar to a director, similar to the CEO. You are the head of this, not department, but office. You are a direct appointment from Governor Brad Little, and you are in charge of doing business in energy and mineral resource in Idaho. Yes?
Yes. Yes.
God bless it. We have a lot of things to talk about. We won't be able to get to all of them today.
No,
So
right.
hopefully you're willing to come back.
Yeah.
First thing I would love to talk about is energy, because there's a lot going on with energy. In the Treasure Valley, we have a regulated monopoly. Okay. So we have Idaho Power Company. That is a private company. You can buy stocks of it. And it's also regulated by the state of Idaho because there isn't another power company alternative, right? It's a monopoly. But as such, it has been granted the monopoly status, but also voluntarily subjected itself to regulations of the Public Utility Commission, the PUC. So Idaho Power does get rate increases, right? And it is allowed to make a profit,
Right.
but it has to make an appropriate profit per the rules and regulations of the Power Utility Commission. And they're the ones that determine, hey man, you are proposing like a 5% rate increase, and you're justifying this 5% rate increase by, this $100 million capital expenditure. And they determine, okay, this capital expenditure is either valid and we'll grant you your rate increase, or no, man, that doesn't look valid. I don't think you had to do that. You spent that money on your own and it's not really to our benefit. So no, you don't get your rate increase. But the Public Utility Commission does get to review all the docs, all the receipts, all the plans, and say, okay, this is valid or not. Am I accurate so far?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. This year, Idaho Power customers are about to swallow a 16 to 17% rate increase that has been approved by the Public Utility Commission. Idaho Power bill up 16 to 17% residential customers. Accurate again, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that rate increase being driven by residential consumers and residential demand, or is it being driven by commercial demand like data centers and Micron and whatnot, and being passed on to residential payers?
So I don't think it's being passed, or I don't think that it's being caused by commercial use, because a lot of times, when these companies come in, when a data center comes in, they go to Idaho Power and they say, this is how much power we need.
Sure.
And so they're going to pay for that themselves, and so,
when you say they are going to pay for
the
that,
company, they're
Gotcha.
they're going to be responsible for that. So it's not that they're passing that on to ratepayers. And the PUC, their sort of unofficial mission statement is to keep those rates low and to not pass things on to ratepayers that shouldn't be passed on to ratepayers. So I would think, Idaho is growing at such a rapid pace, and residential use is growing, and we are, really at capacity for the energy that we're using and what Idaho Power can supply. So, I don't know all the ins and outs of what caused that, but I would assume that it's a mix of things. That's residential use, but also the types of energy that they're looking for, and just the fact that they need more power. And so I think there's a lot of different pieces that go into it. Some of it is just the cost of getting energy into Idaho, and some of that is just the lack of transmission lines that we have. It's going to be more costly to get energy in with the limited capacity and the limited transmission abilities that we have. So, and the types of energy that we can buy from, so we have, I've talked to folks in Idaho Power, and they're saying, we could get cheap energy in Arizona in the winter, because solar is really cheap in Arizona, but we don't have a way to get it up here. So then we've got to get power from where we can get it now.
That might be more expensive,
right.
But you have access
right.
to it.
But if we had a transmission line, and those are in the works now, but there's, a lot of controversy about transmission lines and where the energy's going and what it's used for, but if we had a transmission line up from Arizona, we could be getting that cheap solar energy in the winter when we don't have good, cheap solar energy. So there's just so many things at play that cause those rate increases. But I think that's a big part of it, is just the types of energy we're able to buy and when we can get it, but I will say those big commercial entities are really expected to pay their own way for sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
When you're talking about different types of power, are large consumers of energy able to say, hey, let's say I need 100 megawatts. Okay. But I would like half of that to be titled green or renewable. Are they able to negotiate with power companies and say like, hey, this is what I want my portfolio of energy consumption to be because I want to declare myself as, energy responsible or something like that?
I don't know if they do or not. I'm sure that there are companies that want to do things that way. And I wonder if it's Idaho Power, if they're saying, well, this is kind of our energy mix, but really you're buying it from, the markets. And so I don't know that they're able to make those commitments.
Gotcha. Okay. So first off, thank you for breaking that down. Like, again, this is a real concern. I know a lot of legislators are very concerned about it as well, that residential payers are now footing the bill.
Right.
I don't know if you know, but in the last several years that I've been here and been fortunate to call this place home, we have not had this level of rate increase, right? So it seems like all of a sudden something's jumping up. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the population, like it didn't jump up analogous with the population, right? So like do you have any idea of what might be driving such an atypical rate increase?
I don't know if it is the transition to going to greener energy sources, more renewable sources. It's just more expensive, but we are jumping up from some of the lowest rates in the country too. So, a 16 to 70% increase is certainly going to be felt from folks. But I think, we have like the lowest natural gas rates in the country. And I think we're like the bottom 5 of energy costs. So it's still a pretty good place to pay your power bill, So,
Sure.
But I think there's a lot of those factors are driving it. It's just that we are an energy importer. And so we are just a net importer. So we are subject to the whims of what it costs to produce and where we can buy it. So I think those are big factors and trying to move away from, our coal, which is really can be a cheap source of energy, or natural gas. I mean, those are huge components of our portfolio, of our energy portfolio. So as you move away from those things, I think the costs are going to go up. But
how much of our energy do we import?
At least half.
Oh,
or almost half. Yeah.
So the cost that ratepayers might be paying could actually just be the wholesale cost of getting it from other states. So it may not be necessarily, or at least it is in part at the whim of what's going on with other regulatory entities in other states. So as, for instance, as you decommission nuclear power sources on the coastal states, that drives up the cost of energy. And if we're importing from those areas, then that obviously is going to drive up our costs. So Idaho Power might say like, hey, look, man, my cost to get this power into my little transfer station and then fire it out to you, my cost went up. And my cost didn't go up because of our data centers. My cost went up because they decommissioned 4 nuclear power plants on the West Coast, which drove up the West Coast cost, and we're importing.
Yeah. And then trying to shift away from, sources that are kind of, we're going to be running out of. So that's really, you're just competing and you're paying the market rate, which is going to be going up because everybody needs it too.
When you talk about doing business, because if anybody wants to do business as an energy provider, they got to come through your office, right?
They should. Yes.
Oh, they should.
They don't have, there's no regulatory or statutory requirement that they come to our office, but we can definitely help companies if they're coming in and they have a mining and energy project. We can definitely help them navigate the process both on the federal and the state side. So yeah, it's a great idea to come chat with us first.
It's a great idea. Wait, so if I wanted to say start like a coal-fired power plant, I don't have to get a permit from you essentially.
No, we don't have any regulatory authority.
Oh, so if I am doing this, I'm like, well, I want to do a coal-fired power plant, so I should go talk to Callie because
we can help you figure out what you need to do in Idaho to do business.
Gotcha.
So, And
So
that,
you're essentially assisting in appropriate business application. So it's like, look, we'd love all the business.
Yep.
And to that end, we'd love to help you understand how we do business, who you need to talk to, what you're going to have, what ducks you got to have in a row in order to get the stamp of approval here. We're not the one stamping it, but we can help you navigate all of these considerations.
Yep.
So when somebody wants to come and mine in Idaho, what do you tell them? You're like,
We say,
buddy,
come on in.
this is going to be intense.
Yeah. No, we say, come on over. Let's figure it out. Yeah.
Okay, so what is that? Because I have heard so much about the Timite mines and other mineral harvesting operations. And you know what I heard actually recently, which I thought was so beautiful from somebody, up in it. Like, look, you really need both parties. You really need the company whose sole job it is to harvest this thing. And they're trying to do it at a profit because no company can exist at a loss. And they're trying to make it pencil out and they're trying to make it work. And they're going to present a certain data set and a certain outlook. And great. But you also need the environmentalists and conservation groups to a point to be pushing back and punching holes in their plan. And so the person in the middle, the state, who's trying to figure it out, the state really needs both of these groups in a healthy, to somewhat good faith, relationship where it's, okay, we want to engage in this capitalistic endeavor. And then the environmentalists who spend all day trying to figure out problems with the capitalistic endeavor as it relates to the environment, they're, wrecking, these plans. And you have that tension. And out of that comes, okay, here's the least damaging, but financially viable solution so that everybody wins.
Well, stibnite is such a great example of why that dynamic works so well, because stibnite is picking up where, several abandoned mines have left off.
Can you explain what stibnite is?
Yeah, so it is, I think it's the name, stibnite is just the name of like the nearby town, but it's it's an antimony mine, antimony and gold mine up in the wilderness by Cascade, Donnelly. And it's this massive mine. It originally about, 100 years ago was and actually remains the sole domestic source of antimony in the United States. And so they were kind of the primary supplier of antimony to the military in like World War I and World War II.
And to be clear, no munitions can be made without antimony.
Yeah. And so
currently we import our antimony to supply our defensive forces of the United States from China and Russia.
And actually I know. And China,
it's like getting the PPE equipment.
I know, exactly. But China is not importing that into the US anymore. So, it's very silly that we've been importing antimony from China for the last 50 years.
Wait, China's no longer exporting it to us?
They will not import antimony to us in the whatever grade it needs to be for munitions.
So wait, what's our other source besides Russia?
The stibnite mine.
Oh my gosh. So we quite literally, the defensive capacity of the United States military rests on our capacity to get antimony from the Timite Mine in Idaho. Yes. There's no other national...
This is the largest... I mean, there's no other... As far as I know, there is no other mine, there's no other source of antimony, and there's no other outfit that can do antimony the way that the military needs except the Timite Mine.
In the United States.
Right, in the United States.
Holy guacamole.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is why everyone has been talking about this. Yep. So it was a gold mine. It produced antimony for munitions in World War I and World War II, and has since kind of, after that time frame, fell off.
Right. And I think it's changed hands a few times, but every time it has, it's just sort of been abandoned, or they've had these bad mining practices where they just bury it. I was out there in June, and you see, it's really funny because they showed us this tailings pond, and what it looks like is this beautiful sort of rocky creek, waterfall flowing into this beautiful pond, and you're like, no, that's a tailings facility. It's toxic. But it looks like...
What's a tailings facility?
So that's just where they
dump
the waste.
All their nasty.
But it looks like this beautiful... But
and then you have like a 5-legged frog come out of it.
But so that's the status quo out there, right? So that was what was left there. And so what's really cool...
Not by you, not by me. We're talking generations past.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so this is what happened before. So what's out there is is that there's no way for, fish passage for salmon, or it might be, I can't remember, but fish passage,
Wildlife.
anything that, an anadromous fish that swims upstream, right, is cut off. So they are stopped, and they've been stopped for decades because of the mining practices that were left there. So the really cool thing is what Perpetua is doing is they're creating a fish passage for the first time. So they're going to cover up that tailings facility. They're going to reroute the river so that it actually can extend the river that doesn't exist now, but can extend that fish passage by, I don't remember how many miles, but by quite a bit. So it's going to be great for fish. And they're doing that first before they do any mining.
So to be clear, Perpetua is the company
Right.
that came in and said, hey,
Mm-hmm.
here's a Stignite mine, gold and
Yep.
antimony, and it has been used and abused, and
Right.
specifically the environment surrounding it
Yep.
for a long time. And hey, Idaho, what we propose is first, we kind of make the sins of the past right.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to cover up this toxic tailing pond. We're going to reroute the river so that we can extend fish passage and fish can continue on up the river. That portage right now does not exist, so we'll do that.
Yes.
We'll clean it up, and then we'll engage in better mining practices. So they're essentially footing the bill for a repair and correction of a problem they did not create.
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha. And so that's their plan, essentially. So they've come to the state and said, like, okay, how about this?
Yeah.
And what is the state saying?
So it's on federal land. So they went through at least a 7-year process with the Forest Service to get their record of decision. So they got that in January. And so
And what did the Forest Service say?
they approved their
like,
yes, it went through a lot of different, environmental process.
Sure.
And they made a lot of changes to the project. But when it comes to us, so this is, one role that we play as a state is we help companies like this navigate, because they've got, a bunch of permits. They need a DEQ. They have water resources permits. They have land. There's an Idaho lands component. And so they need to do, financial assurance or bonding. And so it is a very complicated, even for a state that has a very low regulatory scheme, very limited regulations. Like, we don't have our own environmental, analysis requirements like National Environmental Policy Act. We don't have a NEPA. We don't have our own ESA or Endangered Species Act. So, we're relying on the federal side of this to kind of do that environmental analysis work. But for us, we still have our DEQ, air quality, water quality, all of those. And then, water resources, they need water permits. They need, water resources needs to make sure that their tailings facility is adequate, or the culverts for the fish passage are, the right size, or those kind of things. So there is definitely still a massive state component to making sure this project is complete the right way. So our office really is helping to kind of make sure those state agencies are coordinated, that they're, that's the Perpetua has the right info, that they're giving them the right info, and can really do this efficiently. So, and that's sort of walking through the Stibnite mine process on the state side, and it's kind of seeing it coming is really what got, the idea of the Speed Council, which I know my predecessor came in and talked to you about earlier this year. That was really the driving force behind the Speed Council, was we really need to be more efficient, because mining has increased in the state by 40% in the last 4 or 5 years. So Stibnite is a big, massive project. And for a lot of these agencies, they are not used to navigating these kind of complex regulatory processes for this scale of a project. But it's coming. Mining is ramping up in the state, and so we really do need to be ready for it. And so the idea behind the Speed Council really is, let's take some of these big projects and really coordinate well and get them through, not rubber stamp anything, but make sure that our best people are reviewing those permits so that they have certainty about when the decisions are going to be made, and that they have the right info. And so we're not having all of these, all this lag time between, oh, you should have, you know, gone to DEQ first, but you went to water resources first, and now this is all messed up. Or, you know, water resources, you know, they have, you know, no matter who you are, you go to the back of the line for your water, right? You know,
Right.
And so, are there things that we could do for some of these massive projects that take a ton of time, a ton of resources, but have a huge economic benefit to the state, that we can, you know, make sure that they are moving through the process really efficiently?
The last thing you said, make sure they have an economic benefit for the state. The one large, very noteworthy project that was proposed in the state was the Lava Ridge project.
Right.
And people, you know, it's like there was not a single, you know, red-blooded Idahoan who thought it was a good idea, right? And people were very vocal about it, predominantly because it was, okay, this is a private company. Okay, fine. You can have private companies on federal land that was currently being used for grazing and other things. It's like, okay, so that's going to be a problem. And the power production was going to be delivered to another state. So it's like, okay, you're just parking these 700-foot windmills here. Nobody in Idaho wants them. You're not, you know, obviously process oriented. People did not feel that the Idaho voices at every level, both citizen and elected official, were being taken into account. It's going to disrupt existing Idaho-centered, businesses like grazing and ranching operations. Once you disturb the grazing and ranching operations, you have to consider wildfire and other kind of fuel buildup problems. Because, like, are you going to go cut the grass? It's like 200,000 acres. Like, yeah, we have cows and stuff out there. And guess what? You're welcome, because this is great. We're managing large lands, right? So you had all of these problems that people didn't want. And ultimately, people were saying, this does not benefit Idaho, and no one's listening to us.
Right.
What are the proposed benefits for Idaho from the Timite Mine?
Well, I think some of the main benefits are just, you know, high paying, hundreds, maybe thousands of high paying jobs for Idahoans, you know,
long-term
jobs. You know, you could raise your whole family and work at the Timite Mine. You know,
Don't swim in the pool.
Right. It will not be there.
Okay,
it's going to be a beautiful river.
You can go fishing again. It'll be great.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, high paying jobs that you could work your whole career at the Timite Mine. So that's a huge part of it. And just, you know, I think the other side of it is just, in general, our state's interest in the national security piece of it, because they can't get the antimony anywhere else, you know. So I think we should all have an interest in that piece of it too. But it is, you know, a massive amount of money coming into the state too, because, you know, these workers, you know, they'll probably work like, you know, a couple weeks on, a couple weeks off. So it's not like they're going to be flooding the town of Cascade necessarily, but it is going to be, you know, people probably living within a few hours from the site, you know, and coming in. And so these are Idahoans, you know, that could get these jobs now, you know.
Sure.
So I think those, not now, but like they could be living in Idaho and doing the 2 week, right?
Right. And again, these are not just like construction one and done jobs, right?
No.
Like you're not getting thousands of long-term, you know, like multi-decade jobs out of windmills.
Exactly.
Right. Like you're going to construct them and then they're going to run and you're going to be gone
and
then they're not going to work and then they're just going to sit there very sad. Like, It occurred to me just now that you are in the office that would have been overseeing any nefarious cobalt mines in the Snake Plains Aquifer. Yeah. And what a hilarious thing. But again, that was a great misunderstanding essentially with, look, it's not, we need cobalt. Right. And there are companies in the state of Idaho that are engaged in trying to mine cobalt, not on the Snake Plains Aquifer where we had the water call, right? Because the company that was engaged in that had two different mines, one middle of Idaho and then one on the Snake Plains Aquifer. The one on the Snake Plains Aquifer got shut down in 2019, has not been engaged since. And the other one was at like Black Creek or Blackfoot or something. I can't remember. It was something. I don't know, it's Blackbird or something. I don't know. But a small creek up in the middle of Idaho that was on the salmon watershed, right? So like completely different water system. I'm accurate on this one, right? Like
I think so. I don't know as much.
It's like Jervois or something.
Jervois,
Jervois. It's French. I always screw that up. Okay, great. So, but you would know, like your office would know if somebody came in and were like, hey, we want to mine cobalt in the Snake Plain, like you would know. And there's nobody mining a cobalt on the Snake Plain aquifer.
As far as I know.
As far as you know, and you would know. I'm taking this one to the bank.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, we had you probably read, I don't even know if I want to bring this up, but a nuclear SMR that wants to build themselves on, or get built on the, part of the footprint of Lava Ridge.
Isn't it an SMR or is it SMR?
MSR. Small modular reactor.
Oh, I thought you were saying molten salt reactor.
Oh no, sorry. This is a
small modular reactor.
Yes,
and is this a light water reactor or is it a molten?
I don't know.
Okay.
But
it's one with nuclear.
But I guess my point is that I've been hearing a buzz about it, but they haven't come to talk to our office. And so we don't really know what's going on with it. There's been an article written about it in Jerome. And I think they're having some public meetings, but there's just been I'm not sure what's going on with it.
I mentioned to you this before. I've just started engaging in a nuclear education project with, some really cool people. And I am blown away by it. And again, I am a dum-dum. I don't know anything, but the reliance on energy and the role energy, cheap, reliable, consistent energy that has played in the rise of the United States in the last 100 years to the world power that we are cannot be overstated. That is why we became what we were, because we had the quantity and reliable energy that we did. And in fact, we supplied it to our allies all during World War II as well, which is wild. I actually read to this point, I saw a documentary on the air fighting going on in World War II between Germany and Great Britain. And one of the articulations originally, because Great Britain had air superiority over Germany. And one of the causes people said is like, oh, we just had these great aviators. Like, you ever watch Planes? It's like that guy Bulldog.
Yeah.
The British racer, right? Anyway, so there was all this pride in the success of the British aviation program and the Air Force. But what the program that I was watching said is like, yeah, that's a thing, but they also had more fuel, because if you were a German fighter pilot, you had to get to Great Britain, and then you had to engage in dogfighting, and then you knew no matter what, you had to turn around and fly home. And they just had to go up and do all the fighting they wanted, and then they could land on the spot. Yeah. And they went through all these processes of showing, like fuel consumption to like, look, an average dogfight would last this long, and you'd have to ramp up the RPMs, and all these different things would happen. But it came down to energy. It was like, it doesn't even matter how good of a fighter pilot you are. Like, the Germans had better planes. They didn't have to like roll before they could dive. They could just like all of these different things, but they didn't have the energy. They didn't have the fuel capable of doing this repetitive and lengthy dogfighting. So it's like, it's so fundamental to our success as a country. And now we see in the next wave of not just national defense, but the next wave of economic boom are things like data centers. And all data centers want all day long, every day, is power.
Right.
Do they come to you if I was like, hey, I want to build cryptocurrency mining, or like I would just want to build like a Meta 2.0 or whatever. I don't have to, but I'd likely come to you and say, hey, this is my enterprise, this is what I'd like to do.
Yeah, I think when to the extent any of them, are coming to the state and sniffing
we only
around,
have one.
Right. I think they're going to Commerce. But they're going, like I said, they're going to Idaho Power, and they're saying, this is our power needs. Can you supply that? And I think, Idaho Power is really saying, we're kind of at capacity. We're needing to figure out what we could do to power these entities. But there is kind of, it's an interesting place to be, because, I think there's some states that have said, we want data centers. Come here. We have power to sell to you. We want you to be here. So, Utah has said that. I think Oklahoma has said that. There's a few other states that really
have really encouraged. Yeah.
And I think it's sort of undecided here in Idaho if, we want to make those things work. But there's some pretty cool things out there to, power not only data centers, but, other types of things. But there's a nuclear company called I can never remember how to pronounce it, but Allo, it's AALO. And their whole kind of model is small modular reactors that basically they could do in, 5 or 10 megawatt increments to just sort of customize the power needs for a data center. So they could just run completely self-sufficient. So I think in that conversation, I don't think you can have a conversation about data centers without the nuclear component, because that's sort of the solution, I think, for those centers, because they can be totally off the grid. Then they're just self-sufficient.
Right.
So,
you get like a molten salt reactor or a molten salt battery that
Yeah.
essentially just sits there and runs forever.
Yeah. So it's really, I think, if that technology can come along, that's really, pressures off the utility, because they can just power themselves.
I spoke to some people recently that were really concerned about the guaranteed rate of return that Idaho Power as a regulated monopoly gets. So, again, in determining when Idaho Power goes to the Public Utility Commission and they say, okay, look, we're asking for this rate increase. And here are all of our books, here are all of our receipts, justifications, minutes from the meetings, whatever you want. Check it out. This is why we're doing it. They get amongst that figuring, they get a 9.5% guaranteed rate of return for all justified capital improvements. And some people I've been talking to recently are like, look, this is a really dangerous precedent, because what they will do and what they, people feel they have been doing is attempting to attract things like data centers here, because they're like, look, man, we don't currently have the infrastructure to supply, let's say, I don't know, what's like a large data center?
Well, Meta is
okay, Meta, Meta, build a second one. Okay, we don't have the infrastructure to build a second Meta, or supply a second Meta data center with energy. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to build a $500 million additional plant, or a $500 million or $1 billion, whatever. They're like, and remember, for every dollar we invest, we're guaranteed 9.5% return. So there's this incentivization to attract consumers, large load consumers, that they don't have that Idaho Power does not currently have the capacity to supply. And because they have a duty to serve large load customers, and the large load customers, are not going to the wholesale market, because they have that, then Idaho Power gets this 9.5% return, which is guaranteed. And then, people are concerned that that's getting passed off to the consumers, right? So like, how does that work, that they're a public company, they're a regulated monopoly, and they also get a guaranteed rate of return?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think those are, things that they work out with the PUC. And so,
do you know people at the PUC?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I need to get the PUC.
Yeah.
Hit me up with the Public Utility Commission.
Yes.
I can't wait.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have I'll give them coffee too.
I think they'll need it. No, I mean, I think all of that is worked out, and the PUC really is, I think it's a public process, so you can comment on those, those decisions. And so I think there is an opportunity for folks that, if they have an issue with that, to participate in some way. But that's really, they're the decision maker.
Yeah.
So,
and my articulation was accurate, right?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm not totally sure.
To the bank, I'm taking it all.
Listen,
we'll check in. We'll check in with them. When you talk about other states like Utah attracting data centers, and the people have talked about like, oh, we get the benefit from the data center. What's the benefit? Because like the Meta data center, it's like 50 jobs.
Yeah. So I think that's really why Idaho is kind of on the fence, because I think there was a lot of excitement about that data center coming in.
Sure.
And, my mom's a superintendent in CUNA, and
Your mom's a superintendent in CUNA? For real?
Yes.
Wow, man. I may have like connected with her at one point. Yeah. Anyway.
So she was out, I think, at the ribbon cutting or whatever. But anyways, they, I think people were excited, and then they're like, well, what is the advantage? And so I think that's why, legislators and even, executive leadership is like, I'm not sure if we do want to be open for business for these data centers or not. So it's just, I think, an open question, because I think the question is just, what do we get out of it? So, and that's kind of where that, if they can figure out their own power source, then that's great.
Yeah, right. One thing that somebody did say, they're like, well, they might need to upgrade like infrastructure, right? So if you're a data center, you need like connectivity instantaneously. And they're like, so that's essentially like like a buoy in the ocean,
Yeah.
right? Like you put a buoy in the ocean and then things start attaching to it. A small life attracts larger life. And all of a sudden you have like an ecosystem around this buoy floating in the ocean. And that's essentially the analogy with the data center. It's like the data center brings in connectivity and then you start attracting small companies and businesses and entrepreneurs around that connectivity because in the absence of that, you do limit the type of commerce you can do. So if you have companies that are like, look, every millisecond counts for me, I need upgraded infrastructure, and bringing in this data center, they're going to upgrade the infrastructure for their own selfish ends, but we all get to benefit from it. That was one thing that somebody said to me.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. But is that enough? I don't know.
Dude, is that enough? That's the question, right? And they have to buy water rights, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't have a lot of extra water. So like they have to purchase, like farmland or something like that and then let it go foul to get the water rights.
Yeah, it probably depends where they are in the city. And actually, I was talking to Matt about this. He's like, a lot of times they can kind of, when they hear Matt Weaver.
Oh, Director Weaver. Gotcha.
But they when they hear, what it costs or what they need, the hoops that have to jump through, they usually can reduce the amount that they need pretty quick. So
gotcha. Yeah, man, this is not Oregon. We do not have like an abundance of water. It's like water just everywhere. A little bit of high desert thing going on. Okay, so antimony mines, data centers, rate increases, the PUC. We got to add the PUC.
Yeah.
And at the core of this is, look, it's not like Idaho is pro business.
Yes.
Idaho is pro and I've talked to all four of the national representatives and senators. Yeah. They're all like, listen, all hands on deck, right? Like we're in for all commerce as long as it benefits Idaho and it's done responsibly. We're in for all power sources as long as it's, like every power source has a problem. Like you're not getting out of here without some issue from somewhere. Like there's no silver bullet. And all of this comes down to, okay, how can we make voluntarily engaging in all of these things as painless as possible while maintaining the integrity of our checks and balances and the benefit to Idaho? That's kind of the nature of the Speed Council, right?
Yeah, I think it really is to say, we definitely want, we are open for business for mining, for all types of energy, but we want to make sure you're doing it right. And we want to help you navigate the process so you're not wasting money, you're not wasting time. So we want to, we're not a state that is going to or is able to just throw money at a company, but what we hope through the Speed Council we can do is to give you regulatory certainty, to give you, a sense of, okay, you can expect decisions on these in this specific time frame. So that's what we're hoping to do. But I think the other opportunity is really, to prevent things like Lava Ridge from coming. I think they just came into this state the complete wrong way. And I think that because it's not like everyone in the state is universally anti-wind. It's just that when you come in the way that they did it, almost all backwards, you really are not going to come out successfully from that. There was just, even after they made all of their concessions and modified the project, it just too much damage had been done, I think. So, but you come into our office or if we get the Speed Council through next year, you come to the Speed Council and we help you figure all that out. Maybe there's no scenario where your project's going to work in Idaho, but if there is a chance, that's a role that we can play, is to kind of say, well, you got to go make sure you talk to the county. You've got to make sure that you are, modifying your project in a way that makes sense, or all of those things, those preliminary sort of discussions about things that we can help you to make sure that you don't get to the end of your federal process and find out you're not going to be able to move forward,
Gotcha. Yeah. And again, the Lava Ridge, man, everybody just seemed so. I had a city councilwoman from Caldwell on recently, Diane Register. Great conversation with her. I'm waiting for some slow cooker recipes from her. Apparently she has some good ones, but she had a lot of problems. She and other people that she represents in the city were frustrated. She was like, look, it's the process that we're not happy about, right? Or it's the process that some of her constituents rather are not happy about. And I didn't really get that, but she explained this large issue with like, look, nobody's against having a hotel in Caldwell, like in the abstract. It's not like we're not about that life. Like we don't want people to come and stay and engage in commerce. That's not it. It's the process by which we arrived at this being the hotel in this location in this way. That's what we had to process. And again, it's feeling your just feel like your voice is heard. Like feel like people are listening. Feel like the considerations have been given due consideration or thought. You know, it's those types of things that it's like, okay, that's really it. And it seems like that was one of the giant things, and kind of what you're saying with Lava Ridge as well. It's not that absolutely no one in the state wants a single windmill ever built again. And I'm sure there are people that say no to it. That's fine. Like, none of my affair. But everybody I talk to is like, they just did this the wrong way. Exactly.
Well, and you know, longtime Idahoans, you know, I think will remember, you know, there's a lot of instances where things just, the federal government just used to, or, you know, in some ways think it still happens. Things just used to be done to us. You know, we're 70% federal land in the state.
Right.
So they have a lot of decision-making space on what happens within the borders of our state, you know. So we have, you know, if you ever talk to anybody about wolves, you know, you had an experimental population brought in here.
You see that book right there? Wolfer?
Oh, nice.
That's the guy who brought him in.
Oh, yeah.
I've had Carter Niemeyer on 3 times. Yeah.
Okay. I need to catch up on those. But so, you know, there is, and we talked about nuclear, you know, there's a lot of history of things being done here, and Idahoans feeling like they did not have a say in how it happened, what happened. And you're just stuck with these federal decisions. And so, you know, there's a lot of, you know, our work is really meant to, and we have an agency called the Office of Species Conservation that works on, you know, endangered species issues.
We have that office?
Yes.
Who heads that office?
Mike Edmonson.
I need to get Mike Edmonson on here. I would love to talk to him about grizzly bears in the east side of the state.
Yeah, he'd be great.
Yeah, I had one of the commissioners from Fish and Game on, Brody Harshbarger, who has grizzly bears like in his front yard.
You've got to have Mike, because that was actually I worked with Mike right out of law school. OSC was my first job, so it holds a special place in my heart.
Oh my gosh.
So, but
where'd you go to law school?
The University of Idaho.
Look at you. God bless it.
Yeah. So, anyways, so though there is a high interest, and rightly so, from Idahoans of what decisions the federal government is making. And, you know, I would say, especially, well, I can only speak from my experience, but, you know, before I was here, I was in a Department of the Interior. And before that, I worked for Governor Otter. And there was a lot of, we did a lot of work when I was there to make sure we really knew what the federal government was doing, and that we had a say in the decisions they were making, and they couldn't just steamroll us like I think many people felt with Lava Ridge. So, and, you know, at the end of the day, they did have to make a bunch of project concessions, but had they come in and done that right at the beginning, who knows what public sentiment would have been, you know?
The Department of Interior is distinct from the Bureau of Reclamation. Department of Interior deals with like a lot of...
Interior is sort of the big umbrella. Okay. So Bureau of Rec is under that. Bureau of Land Management's under that.
Gotcha.
Fish and Wildlife Service.
And the Bureau of Reclamation is the one that was in charge of creation of dams throughout oh my God, sorry about that. Creation of dams throughout the United States, including the Teton Dam, right? And essentially after the Teton Dam failure, there was a large slowdown and then essentially halting of reservoir dam creation in the United States, right? What do you think the odds are that could get fired up again?
Building a dam?
Yeah.
See, that's the thing is, you know, hydropower is a great clean source of energy, but I don't know that we're going to see the investment in that type of investment in that type of energy again.
What about just water storage?
Well, I don't know.
Gosh, this is going to be a wild one. Because everybody, I mean, like, these are real problems that Idaho is really trying to get ahead of. I mean, and you can see great examples of mismanagement and poor decision-making or no decision-making. I mean, the case of the state that shall not be named, you had people that said, okay, surface water is accounted for. You can't do anything.
Right.
And then they didn't regulate groundwater. And so it became over the decades just this game of whoever had the longest straw and the biggest pump. And the aquifer has literally collapsed the tune of like multi-dozen feet, which will never be recaptured, right? Like once that compresses, that, you know, it's essentially like a big water bottle. And once you smash the water bottle, it's not popping back up. Right. And Idaho was like, no, man, we're not playing that monkey game. Like, we're going to get ahead of this. And part of it is water storage, right? Like, we need, in wet years like we had last year, we had something, didn't we flush something like 600,000 acre feet of water down into the ocean that couldn't, spilled over Milner Dam that we couldn't grab?
I don't know. That sounds right.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of water. Anyway, conversation for another day.
Yes.
Callie, I have really appreciated having you on here. I know we covered a bunch of things. Is there anything you'd like to say here at the end? And again, I'd love to have you on again. So you don't have to cover everything in one day, but is there anything in particular?
No, I don't think so.
Great.
So great.
Well, God bless it. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Listen to me. I want Mike Edmonson.
Yeah. Great.
I want the PUC. Like, help me connect with these people, because I'd love to get those conversations going too.
That'd be great.
Okay, cool. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah. Thanks.